Hello, listeners. Welcome to Global India Podcast, a fusion podcast. I'm your host for this episode, Shakira Tarashan. You must have all heard India's lockdown anthem, Age of Limbo. Something's got to give. Welcome to no man's paradise. Well, we have the singer, writer, and musician Mali Manoj here as a guest on our episode. She has come a long way with sheer talent and perseverance. Move over, Nora Jones. Here comes Mali. Welcome, Mali, to our show, and thank you for joining us.
Hi, Auntie. Thank you so much for having me on your podcast.
So what first got you into music? Are you from a musical family?
Yeah, I grew up in a very musical family. Everyone in my family listens to a lot of good music. I think I've grown up around a wide variety of music, ranging from the jazz my grandfather used to play. And growing up in Chennai, you would be exposed to so much Carnatic music and just general film music. And in the 90s, it was a lot of A.R. Rahman and later Ilaiyaraaja. So it was that. And also, my dad was big into 80s new wave and early electronic music. So I had all of those influences as well. Because I was the first child, I think my parents wanted for me to have a range of extracurriculars to choose from. And so they put me in for a bunch of different classes and, extracurricular activities. Music just happened to be one of them. But I ended up choosing it as not just my primary extracurricular, but my career now.
Who inspired you to make music and write songs, the lyrics?
I think just by virtue of listening to so much different music and hearing people tell their narratives and stories and their opinions through song, it was never something that was formally taught to me. I just came to understand how to use tone and words and melody and kind of braid the three in a way that is that almost was a separate language altogether. I feel like songwriting is still something that no one can really teach you. I feel it's like riding a bike, it's just something you need to get the hang of yourself very much. So I think really that's one part of it. And the other part obviously is being pushed over the edge at some point in your life where you're like, okay, I feel like the only way to say what I have to say right now is in the form of a song or using lyrics. And so, the first song that I ever wrote was about my mom. My mom and I had a big argument when I was 16. And I think I said something super teenager, which was that I was going to leave home because things weren't going my way at home. And my mom said, yeah, fine, leave. And then we'll see what you can do about it and how you can fend for yourself. And I felt really bad at the end of that day. And I sat at the piano. It was raining outside. There was wind blowing through the curtains. And under a lamplight at the piano, I cried and wrote my first song. And after that, it was addictive. I used to write poetry before that, but then after I wrote my first song, I couldn't write another poem again. I couldn't express in any other way as eloquently anymore. So that's how songwriting started for me.
How would you describe the music that you typically create?
What I write and compose is a meld of several different influences that I spoke about earlier. I think at this point of time, I've actually dived far more into my synth pop and retro pop influences for the kind of music I'm creating right now. But at one point of time, I was far more inspired by more classic rock acts like Fleetwood Mac and the Eagles. And then before that, I think I used to listen to a lot of pop from the late 2000s and late 90s and early 2000s, I'm sorry. Then I had a jazz phase. I had all kinds of phases, I feel. And then now I don't borrow from just one style, or I don't want to be a sequel to one artist's sort of style of work. I want to make my own thing. And I think that really comes from borrowing from various completely unrelated and unlikely places. Sometimes my songwriting is actually quite influenced by hip hop as well, in the way that I like to rhyme, not exact rhymes, but near rhymes. And then even those rhymes would happen within phrases and not at the ends of the phrases. So they form a sort of rhythm on their own. So yeah, I think it's really a full melange of various different influences.
What is your creative process?
This is a hard one. I really actually don't know the answer to that because it's quite haphazard. I try and show up to my work. I try and, put myself in a position where I, force myself to write or force myself to, use that muscle, that creative muscle in my head. But most often it doesn't really result in anything immediately. You might get a few ideas that you shelve for later, or you might write a song that's absolutely terrible. And then you end up salvaging that song, a few weeks down the line, few months down the line, maybe even a few years down the line. So it's always important to show up to, doing the job. And then, ideas always find a way of, working themselves into something else, even if it's not immediate. So yeah, for me, I don't know if I would say I'm more of a lyric first or a melody first person, because I've been able to do both. But, it happens so quickly together that I don't know which comes first, Most often, even if I have a phrase in mind, the melody comes so quickly that I can't even remember which came first at this point in time. I think I used to be able to, sit and write a song at one go in one sitting. Sometimes in less than an hour, I'd write a whole song. That still happens, but it's not as often as it used to. So now I end up, spending a little more time wordsmithing ideas that I have, rewriting bits, changing the melody here and there. I think I try and refine what I do a lot more these days, maybe because I have already put so much time into releasing and recording music. So that's where I am at right now.
Which of the musicians would you like to collaborate with? Because today it's world music with a lot of fusion of different music together.
I've been listening to a lot of Courtney Barnett, Phoebe Bridgers, Maggie Rogers, a lot of contemporary female singer-songwriters that are based in the US and the UK. I am a big fan of not just their writing and their performance in their songs, but also the kind of aesthetic that they create with their artwork and their dressing and all of that. Like, I'm a big fan of how they present themselves and how the vibe that's created around them. So I think if I could work with them, not even work with them, even if I could just sit and have a drink with them, or, just talk to them or do something completely inane, just to kind of understand them. I know they say you should never meet your heroes. So that's something I'm definitely afraid of. But if I could just get some time with them and understand what they do, that would be amazing.
You had said you would like to open for Fleetwood Mac, who have inspired you. So what tips would you give a new person entering the industry?
I think always be authentic. It's very important to do so. I find that a lot of artists, and mostly younger artists who are just breaking into the scene, they find it more of a shortcut method to borrow very heavily from an artist that's doing well or is in the limelight, because, they think that's what's working and that's what's current and hip. So I think that's really not the most sustainable option in the long run, because, trends are going to change. Music that people listen to on the top 40 playlists right now is not going to be what it is even a year or two from now. So if you're trying to stick very strongly to trends and, follow what the general, top artists are doing with their lives right now, I think that's gonna pigeonhole you a bit, and you're gonna be a little lost as to what your identity and your narrative is in the whole thing. So I think it's important to always stay authentic, know early on what drives you, what makes you tick, what makes you sit down and write, and what you like about going on stage or being a musician in the first place. If you know what your goals are at the start, then it's easy to always be authentic. And I think it's important before you do anything to do that first. Like sit and have a conversation with yourself about what you really want from this.
How do you feel the internet has impacted the music business?
The internet is something that has come in pretty recently in how us musicians operate. You know, in the past 10 years, music distribution has been taken away from the label and the artist manager and put directly in the hands of the artists themselves. So I can sit in my bedroom and make a song, and if it's of good enough quality, I can, just get in touch with a distribution company, one of several hundreds of them online. And I pay something like, like $25 to $30, and I can get my music up on almost any music service, streaming service in the world, all sitting in my bedroom. Like, I don't even have to leave my room to write, record, produce, master, and release my music to the rest of the world for eternity, which is the first time in the history of the world that this has ever been possible. I think what it's also done is it's kind of given the fans an opportunity to see the artists that they like for who they are. Because before the internet, labels would have to create personas for artists, and then they kind of lived behind this huge wall of, management and press, and people really didn't know who the actual artists were until maybe they could read interviews, but even those could possibly be scripted or, have a PR company intervene. But now I think in the age of social media and the internet, people have more direct access to understanding artists. And artists have a more direct way of understanding their fans and what they like and who they really are and what age they are and where they come from. So I think it's removed many of the middlemen in the process. It's also made it a little harder because now there are that many more players because the internet has made it easy. So we have to push extremely hard to make sure our music is good and is something that people will listen to and will stand the test of time. I think the internet is both a good and a bad thing, but I would say it's definitely more of a good thing because I don't think I would have been able to do any of this if it wasn't for the internet.
So Mali, what's next for you? What are you working on?
So I've been working on a full-length album. It's about 8 to 9 songs. I've been working on it for an entire year. It's the most time I've invested in a single piece of music. Actually, more than a year, because I've been writing the songs for a while. So I really hope with this album, with all the time and effort and money I've spent on it, will pay off. It's a pretty powerful album. It's called Caution to the Wind, by the way. And it's about struggle. It's about really all of us having our own personal struggles, but not losing ourselves in it. Because I think what happens is the moment you have a struggle, you have a chip on your shoulder. You make that your identity. You make that what people should almost feel sympathetic for you about. But to throw caution to the wind and just live and, enjoy all of it and kind of enjoy the struggle, that is something that is powerful. I feel a lot of people do it and they don't think about it. There's enjoyment in struggle. And so it's kind of a bittersweet album. It's equal parts dark, equal parts uplifting, and it's quite different from anything that I've released before. So I'm excited to see just how it will be received.
Thank you, Mali, for sharing your experiences and journey with us on this podcast. We hope to see your name on the billboards and hear your wonderful music. We wish you all the very best in your musical career. Thank you.
Thank you so much for having me on your show. I hope I get to meet you sometime very soon. And thank you so much for giving me a platform to voice my thoughts.
We conclude this episode with a joke and the song Age of Limbo, created by and sung by Mali Manoj in her inimitable style. You have all heard the old adage, laughter is the best medicine. Laughter decreases stress hormones and increases immune cells and infection-fighting antibodies, thus improving our resistance to disease. So let us add laughter to our arsenal in our fight against the coronavirus. Here is a joke to cheer you up. We don't have to go to medical school and become doctors to be able to save lives anymore. Saving lives is a lot easier now. All we have to do is to stay at home and do nothing except watch TV and listen to music like the one you're about to hear.
Like a deer in the headlights, I've come under attack. Stopped in my tracks and frozen still. I'm not wasted, I'll become what I will. What I will now. Something ought to turn the tables. Something's got to give. Welcome to the Age of Limbo. Welcome to no man's paradise. Have you been watching from the sidelines? It's not just a footnote on the news, not even about which side you choose. I might be the flavor of the season, but tomorrow they'll come for you. Something ought to turn the tables. Something's got to give. Welcome to the Age of Limbo. Welcome to no man's paradise. Bet you've been watching from the sidelines. Welcome to the Age of Limbo. Welcome to the shifting paradigm. In the wrong place at the wrong time.
This is a free podcast. However, if you enjoy the podcast to the point where it puts you in a generous mood, you can unleash your generosity by donating to the Lions Club of Bangalore Whitefield. Please check out their website. Please write checks payable to Whitefield Lions Club Services Trust out of your Indian bank accounts and send them to Global India 7612 Fenwick Cove Lane, Orlando, Florida 32819. For more details, please visit our website www.globalindiapodcast.com. Please email your feedback and ideas for future episodes to globalindiapodcast@gmail.com. We would love to showcase your talents and accomplishments as well. All you have to do is to email us a note along with your biodata and a recording of your music. Alvida, adios, au revoir, and goodbye for now.